Hello and welcome to the first version of an English Puch Maxi upload video. Today we are going to talk about a very important topic, especially about Piaggio mopeds, which have been produced in the later years when Puch was sold to Piaggio. They added a very unloved feature to the Puch E50 engine, not only the normal E50 but also the kickstart engine, the missing fourth bearing. It's only a 3-bearing engine and the output shaft is running directly in the aluminium of the block, which wears out, and today we are going to try to fix this problem by adding a little modification. Our modification will actually be very simple and it doesn't include any shaving or cutting of the block, only of the output shaft. And the reason I do this is my Puch Maxi Off-Road, which has a 74cc aerosol engine, actually has a 3-bearing Piaggio block which will not last. It will slowly kill itself. So it's time to fix this problem by adding a little mod to the E50 engine. We will actually take a part you can find in every Puch store, the clutch cage bearing, which is a brass bearing that fits between the clutch and the crankshaft. We will modify our output shaft to fit this bearing from the clutch. We need to measure the inner diameter of this clutch bearing and adjust the outer diameter of our output shaft to fit this bearing. You also need to consider to add a little play to the bearing as the gears will heat up, so the outer diameter of the gears will just grow a little bit by heating up. Just consider just 100 or 200ths of a millimeter of play to avoid any spinning of the bearing in the block. As you can see here, we actually don't need to modify the block at all. It will just fit the clutch bearing as is, which is very nice because I don't want to mess up this block as it already is a little bit worn from the previous 20 years of use. The most tedious process about this whole project actually was cutting the shaft to the right diameter. It needs a lot of precision to eliminate any unnecessary play between the output shaft and the bearing to avoid spinning or wearing out of the bearing because of a loose fit of the output shaft. After we confirmed about 1 to 200ths of a millimeter of play between the output shaft and the bearing, we test fitted the bearing and it worked very nicely. As you can see here, it can spin free and you can also remove it very easily. To finish up the output shaft, we also sanded it down to treat the surface just a little bit and also shave away some rough edges. Test fitting the modified shaft into the block will quickly reveal that the bearing is too long. We actually need to shorten it quite a bit, about 5 millimeters, so that it will fit between the output shaft and the block. Also consider adding a play about 1 millimeter between the block and the bearing and between the bearing and the gears. If you forget to add play in the bearing, ATF will not be able to run between the bearing and the output shaft and it will spin the bearing in the block because of running dry and getting hot. After test fitting, I quickly leveled the surface and cleaned up any rough edges of the clutch bearing to avoid any shavings or rough edges touch the block or the gears. Cleaned it up again, put the second bearing on the output shaft to test fit it in the block under pressure by adding 4 screws around the output shaft, and as you can see, the solution works because our output shaft is spinning freely when assembled. This is a very easy solution for fixing a common problem. I'm sure there are more elegant versions like CNC treating the block or something like that. I don't have the tools, most of my viewers also don't have the tools, so I try to describe my ideas about fixing this problem, and I hope you find it interesting. Very important note at the end, please let me know about your thoughts about these English versions, because if nobody is watching them, I might as well do something funny in my spare time other than working about my very little English vocabulary to get out a video in an English version that nobody understands. So I'm looking forward to get some feedback in the comments. Please let me know if your attempts to retry this project are successful or not, and as always, thank you very much for watching.